I want to start with John Osborne Music's question because they open with, could you give some words of encouragement to makers starting out and trying to keep their head up through gestures broadly, all of this? Yeah. I think that is a great place to start, John Osborne Music. And actually, John asked a second question about, as a freelancer, did you set up any savings or retirement fund? As a freelancer, no, I did not. I wasn't even thinking on those lines, because when I was still freelancing, which was into my 30s, I felt invincible because you feel like you're never going to die in your 30s. In your 50s, however, it's a very different experience. Your body's reminding you all the time that the clock is ticking. Once Mythbusters was underway, my wife initiated a retirement plan. It was really smart, and we socked away a fair bit of that TV money for the future, which is really nice. And you know, there are options for freelancers. Look, I won't lie to you. The U.S. tax code sucks for freelancers, and there's a lot that could be fixed. It's hard to deduct expenses. Like it's, the tax system is just structured in a way that makes it expensive to be a freelancer. That's not a word of encouragement. I recognize that. I will say I am constitutionally built to be a freelancer. And that means that I have ADHD. I like new things all the time. I like fresh vistas. I like solving problems in weird ways. That is my primary thing that I like to do with myself. And freelancing has always afforded me the most reliable way to do that. And because I'm constitutionally built for freelancing, I love it. I love the amount of time it gave me to spend with my kids when they were growing up. I love the latitude it gave me about family emergencies, really specifically around family emergencies and stuff like that. Like I said, it was expensive and it was a full-time job. And somebody else asked me, like, how much time did you spend every week working? And the answer is about 40 hours. Like, a work week is a work week, whether you're working or not, was my opinion. It doesn't necessarily work for everybody, just like everything else. You know, it works for some people, it doesn't work for others. So my words of encouragement are, if you are constitutionally built for freelancing, more power to you. I am here for the advice, and you will find it's the greatest thing ever because you have control over your schedule. That's something falling in my shop. You have control over your schedule. I'll give an example. I had a emergency personal issue with a close family member about a year and a half ago. I'm going to be circumspect about the details of this story, but suffice to say that I had to fly out to see this family member, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to help. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I needed to be there. And I got out there and I was talking to my wife. I was in the rental car. And I was on my way to see this family member. And I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what the plan is. And she said, well, you know, just while we're on the phone, I looked at your calendar and you don't have anything to do. She said, the only thing that's on your calendar right now is a corporate event that's not far from where you are in the country 7 days from now. And I said, okay. And she said, why don't you take the time, push everything out a week, and just drive around with them, and maybe you can figure out the plan that way. And the answer is we did drive around for a week. We discovered a lot, and it was a really, really important trip. It was a great trip, and that everything's going great with that person. And a lot of it started on that trip, frankly. And there's a thing I want to tell you about this, which is I was so grateful. Like, every night I'm dealing with this thing. It's very stressful. It's like trying to figure out how to help, what I can do. But I'm also amazed that I have the time and space to do it, that I could, you know, talk to the team here at Tested and say, listen, I'm not coming home for another week. Let's push everything forward. And having the grace to be able to do that is really real, really real. And I recognize that there are some great companies that give a lot of PTO, which is wonderful and should be the case. Everyone should be able to take care of family emergencies and not have to worry about their next shift because your family is important. Sorry, I still am not answering your question. Words of encouragement. My words of encouragement are weird, but they're basically this. Freelancing is hard, and making stuff for people in a creative fashion is really difficult. And when you can get it firing on all cylinders, nothing has been better in my life than those things. Being able to control my schedule, work at my pace, do things that fed me creatively where I had input. And it's a lottery. You might be geographically wrong. You might be constitutionally different. There's all sorts of things like that. But really, like, there's a lot of reward for getting good at something and expressing your excellence in your employment. I believe that. That being said, I have been helped along my journey by having terrific communication skills, which are like a 100x multiplier for almost everything. And that's no lie. Like, being good at communication skills is really, really, really vital. I remember this feels germane to this, which is I got my first credit card when I was like 24, 23, and I immediately racked it up and started avoiding it. Great plan. And my friend at the time said to me, "You owe money to them." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "That means you're in a relationship with them. And do you know what the key to a good relationship is? Communication." He said, "You won't believe what credit card companies will let you do if you're only in constant communication with them." And he was absolutely right. This is a great life lesson he was giving me. It took me a while, but communication skills, there's a lot of questions in here about working with difficult clients. And I'm going to give this overarching answer about working with difficult clients or in difficult jobs is that the very first things you say about stuff truly, truly matters, that you are as clear as possible. When you're gonna, let me put it this way. If I took a job to build something for somebody and I said, okay, it's gonna be a $3,000 gig. And then I don't tell them until the job delivers that I'm charging California sales tax on that because that's what I'm required to do as a business owner. They might be like, where the hell was that expense when you were bidding it? And that is a fair question. And even if you don't think that it's a fair question, it's a tough one to get late in the game, and it could have been run off at the pass if you'd said it at the very beginning. I want to just make it really clear, because I've thought about this a lot, is like, there are things you can say in the first few sentences with the client that are more difficult to say at every other point in the relationship. You say it right up front, like things like, "I won't work weekends." If you say that, turn your phone off and don't answer it. But saying that after the fact can be complicated. So there's a lot of complexity that can be run off at the pass if you're clear at the front. And how do you get clear at the front? By screwing it up and learning and building your own institutional knowledge. Since I feel like we're starting from the ground up, I want to go to the next question from Warner Caffel. Caffel? Yeah, Warner Caffel. Says, it might be a dumb question. It's not a dumb question. How do you think a proper portfolio has to look like? I've had the good fortune to work on some incredible projects here in Wellington, New Zealand. Aww. Maybe with some friends of mine. But getting in was sheer luck. So I was hoping to find some advice on how to beef up my portfolio, besides the usual CV, a PDF with images of my work, and a link to my website. I had a really long resume and CV when I was working, and it was because I was proud of my really long resume and CV. And it was really hard for me to compress it into one page, and I didn't want to because I thought I was special. And the answer is, your resume should be one page. It shouldn't be multiple pages. I'm not going to go that far. I don't need to know the details of the bullet points. I don't need to know the details. I want the bullet points. But you asked about portfolio. So the first thing I'll say about a portfolio is you are not showing someone how good you are. You are showing them how useful you might be to them. That is a really, really, really great frame to think about a portfolio. It's not about your aesthetic sensibility. Even though your life is all about your aesthetic sensibility, your portfolio, well, your portfolio to go get work is about you telling the person you're interviewing for that you can be useful to them. So let's talk about what being useful means. In the making, I have hired people to do in my life has always been of a physical object type of making. Thus, if you bring me a portfolio full of your beautiful sculptures of figures in glass, well, yes, I'm going to see that you have a facility with multiple materials, but I don't know what you started with. So when you show me this angel you've made in glass, well, I can tell that it's built in glass and that's really incredible and hard to do, but I don't know what your first drawing was. And I don't know where you ended up or how close to your first drawing that was. So I look at that and I don't know how useful you can be to me building sets. So I'm going to pass on to you a wonderful piece I got told from a CGI supervisor at ILM, which is put stuff in your portfolio that I know what it should look like. So especially if you're building in digital, do a 57 Chevy, do a parking meter, a phone booth, a telephone. I'm not kidding. This sounds so boring, but if all you brought me in an interview was a perfect telephone that you had made out of a material that is hard to make it out of, I'd be like, let's go. So my best advice for a portfolio is to think of who you're interviewing with, what kind of work they do, and then tailor your work, hopefully, to show them a few things. One, that you can make stuff that would be useful to them. Ergo, my advice about objects that the person you're interviewing for knows what they should look like. Also, don't go too far. A dozen photos ought to do it. I mean, I swear right now, if I was interviewing for a model making job, I mean, how many photos do I have of stuff I've built? Tens of thousands of photos. I still think I would reduce it to like 8 if I was looking for a job. I want to be fast about that. And, oh, right. The other thing is, have you worked with any large clients? If I see that you've worked for Disney or Coca-Cola or Frito-Lay on a gig, those are just wholly different beasts and they're harder to work for. And that also is a good thing to put on your resume. But like, I put my first paper route on my resume and no one freaking cares. It just doesn't matter. Yeah, that's quirky and you're kind of chronicling your life, but that's not going to help you get that job. Your quirky sensibility about your first job that's not going to aid in your employment. I see a lot of people who put up stuff on their website and then they trash the shop they worked for. There's a guy in LA who worked in LA for a while in special effects, and then he put up a website up and down, just dragging every supervisor he'd had in Los Angeles. I'm not going to name him. I just thought it was the most hilarious thing to do on your website. It's like every time you work for someone, you're just burning a bridge, which I guess is one way of doing it. But, you know, I guess one can do that if one is independently wealthy or something. So, portfolio and CV. Okay, so let's see. If it's a physical portfolio, it shouldn't be more than 8 to 12 photos tops. Your CV, all your paper information should be 1 page each. Don't put it on the other side. Swear to God, don't do it. I'm not going to turn the page. The people you're interviewing for are busy. And they want to get the bullet points and the key pieces of information as fast as possible. In a PDF with images, again, I would keep it short. I would keep it, honestly, 6 pages. I wouldn't make it too long. And I would make something like that where it's passing by someone even quicker than you're going through a portfolio. I would reduce it to even fewer images, and I would go for way more things that just showed that you can build what the client might need. Portfolios are hard to do. And you'll find, as I did, you feel proprietary about this area you have fenced in of things that you have built, and you want them all to get some airtime. It's totally natural. When we pour our hearts into our personal stuff, we want it to show up in the thing. But for employment, it just might not belong there.
Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.